Ever after, Vacation Castaways. The royal family eagerly waited and servants loaded their luggage onto their yacht. Sailing out in the ocean for a week sounds like such a relaxing vacation, Amber said. James simply stated how relaxing doesn't equal fun. I think cruises are fun, Sofia told her brother. Miranda assured for her children that the family vacation will be enjoyable, then questioned where their friends were. They're on their way, Mom, Sofia answered. They were allowed to bring a few friends on the trip, with them choosing Hugo and Desmond. Roland turned back to see how the loading was going, then caught a glimpse of the sword stacked on top of some of the luggage being carried on. Wait, stop that crate, he commanded. The servant who was carrying the crate automatically sat it down. Roland walked over and picked up the sword going, James, what did we tell you about bringing your swords on the trip? James explained how he's going to be bored just sitting on a boat all week, so his swords will help occupy himself. If you're bored, then spend time with everyone. This trip is meant to be a vacation. If you're continuing to practice for school, then it won't be that way. Plus, it might damage the ship. You're still not too experienced. James just sighed, then turned going, so Desmond can bring his books, but I can't bring my sword? And pointed to Hugo and Desmond approaching with book bags of their luggage, the latter also carrying a stack of books in his hands. They both handed their luggage to approaching servants for them to bring onto the yacht. I'm glad you boys could make it. The children will be delighted that you two could come. I think everything will be even more fun now that you're here. It seems as though the luggage is done loading, so it's time to board the ship, Miranda said. As everyone was about to board, James glanced to make sure no one was looking, smirked, and picked his sword back up, placing it with the luggage. Once everyone was aboard, everyone paused and noticed Desmond was still standing on the dock. James chuckled and went, Don't tell me you're afraid of water. Desmond quickly defended, No, just really deep water. He then stopped, tucked his hands behind his back, and blushed, adding, And I get seasick. Hugo questioned why Desmond decided to come, making him reply, I just like being part of the group. I don't want to be alone for a whole week. Sofia and Amber just smiled and joined him on the dock. They began to try and give him reassurance. He hadn't been on a cruise or boat for the longest time. He started to explain a story on his past experience when he kept throwing up overboard and almost falling off due to it. It was a traumatizing experience for him that he would never forget. Hugo then joined them on the dock. He placed his hand on Desmond's shoulder going, Come on, little buddy, it's okay. That was 4 years ago. Your seasickness must have worn away by now. You never know until you try. Desmond then agreed and boarded the ship with the others. A few hours later, they were out at sea. All 5 kids were out on deck. They were all trying to catch the breeze, except Desmond, who just held onto the wall of the cabins. The other 4 became aware of this. We have to help Desmond enjoy this and, have fun, Sofia pointed out. Hugo replied how he doesn't know how they could do that without Desmond feeling pressured. James quickly announced that Amber should talk to him. Amber questioned why they thought she could help, and Hugo answered, He just always listens to you for some reason. He does? Amber curiously responded as she turned and looked back at the boy who was clenching onto the wall with his eyes tightly closed. Okay, I'll do it, she exclaimed as she turned back around to face the others. They all formed the rest of the plan and were finally ready as Amber approached the traumatized prince. Hey Desmond, you should really come and join us out here, she said. Desmond simply mentioned how he didn't want to fall off, making Amber go, You won't fall off. All 4 of us will be right there with you. However, if you do start to fall, Hugo and James could easily rush and prevent that. You mean when I start to fall? Desmond depressingly replied. Amber caught Desmond by surprise, making him slightly jump as she placed her hand on his shoulder, going, "Listen, Desmond, you can either stay here and be afraid the whole time, never getting over this fear, or you can come have fun, join us, and make what you were once afraid of something you actually enjoy." Amber could tell from the expression on Desmond's face that he was debating in his head back and forth whether or not to go out and join the others. "Tell you what," Amber began, "we can take baby steps. So, here, take my hand," Amber offered, gracefully reaching out her hand. Desmond's hand slowly let go of the wall and began to reach for Amber's. "That's it. Now take a small step forward, then let go of the wall." It took some time, but Amber and Desmond eventually were back with the others. As the sun began to set, King Roland asked the captain if he could have a try at the wheel. Of course, the captain wasn't allowed to say no, so he explained for the king how to safely do it. Roland excitedly placed his hands on the wheel and cried, "Look, Miranda, I'm sailing!" The queen just giggled at his enthusiasm. "Children, look! I'm steering the ship! Pretty cool, huh?" "Whoa! Can I try?" James begged. Roland took a look at the sunset, admitting how he didn't think that'd be a good idea and how they should be preparing for bed. The captain then added that only experienced sailors should steer at night. "Aww," James disappointingly reacted, quite annoyed. So everyone on board prepared for bed. To their surprise, everyone awoke on shore. "What happened to the ship?" Hugo cried. Sofia answered how it must have crashed on land in the middle of the night. "But how?" Desmond then pointed out, "It seems as though it sailed right onto the island." He pointed towards the front of the yacht, showing the big hole at the bottom. "See, it broke on impact," he concluded. He then picked up the steering wheel laying on the sand, adding, "And for some reason the steering wheel came off, and one of the handles broke off of it." "I can't be stuck on an island forever! I have a whole future planned out!" Amber cried. Roland told her not to worry, and that they'll try to get the ship repaired as soon as possible. "Well, might as well make something out of this time," Amber told herself, grabbing one of her swimsuits and heading inside the yacht to change. "Dad, Hugo and I can explore the island and see if we can find anything," Sofia offered. "That'd be great, Sofia," Roland replied. Hugo and Sofia gave each other a smile and started to walk off. James asked what he could do, and Roland answered, "Just be patient, or maybe help us with the ship." Patient. That was a word James almost always could not stand. The prince immediately grunted and went and sat under a tree by a rock. As he began to cross his arms, he felt something hit his head. "What the?" He then looked down and picked up the coconut laying on the sand, questionably going, "A coconut?" James glanced back toward the yacht, noticing Amber coming out in her swimsuit. Desmond was almost in his own world. As soon as Amber went to lay on the sand, James looked back at the coconut he was holding and gave a mischievous smirk. Desmond just silently stood watching Amber relax until out of nowhere Amber went, "You won't have any fun just standing there, you know. You should make the most of your time. Come join me." Desmond began to blush. He had no idea Amber knew he was watching her. He then silently approached her and sat down beside her. "Even though we're stranded on an island, at least it has a nice beach," Amber said. Desmond simply sat listening to Amber go on and on. But suddenly, Amber felt something hit her and automatically went, "Ow!" They both took a look at the direction the object came from and saw James tossing coconuts at them from behind a rock. Amber grew furious and Desmond quickly told her, "Don't worry, I'll take care of it." Desmond rushed towards the rock James was hiding behind. As James was popping up from the rock, he noticed Desmond and paused. Desmond questioned what James was doing and why. "I don't know, I got bored," James responded. "So, you couldn't throw the coconuts somewhere else? Why at Amber?" "She was just the first thing I saw," James shrugged. Desmond tried hard to politely convince James, but was going nowhere. He finally took a glance at the pile of coconuts and formed a bold look on his face. James became slightly confused as Desmond reached for the coconuts. Next thing he knew, the Mess Best Prince threw the coconuts toward and into the ocean. "Hey, what?" James cried. As Desmond looked back at James, he became a bit hesitant again. Desmond then told him, "Now, please stop." James grunted once again. He explained how he was having fun. "But it wasn't fun for Amber and me though," Desmond reminded him. Desmond had gotten rid of all of James's coconuts, so he couldn't continue even if he wanted to. Now he had to find some other way to entertain himself. He looked near the shore, noticing a group of hermit crabs, and his face automatically lit up. "I think I know what to do," James mumbled. Desmond gave a small nod and knew that his work there was done. As Desmond reapproached Amber, she asked him if the situation was handled. "Yep, all taken care of," Desmond answered with a smile. "Desmond, I don't know how you do it, but you always come through for me. Thank you," Amber casually replied, leaning back onto the sand. The princess didn't even notice Desmond's blush. "Yeah, sure. Of course," he timidly responded. This was a sign in his eyes, a sign that Amber really did appreciate him. The garden in his stomach had once again returned as he glanced back and forth between Amber and himself until he finally blurted out, I have to go somewhere." Amber watched as Desmond went into the woods of the island and she giggled, "Where is that boy off to now?" She knew he tended to remove himself from his situation when he was uncomfortable, but it was becoming more and more common recently.
"Ooh, look! I think this will work!"
Sofia eagerly cried, picking up a plank on the ground. Hugo proudly agreed and mentioned that just a few more and they could build a nice shelter for everyone.
"I used to do architecture back in Dunwoody. So excited to get to try it out again,"
Sofia said. Hugo gave a small laugh at his princess's enthusiasm. Stuck on an island, and she still finds a bright side of things. "That's my girl," he mumbled to himself.
"Still got the stash of coconuts and pineapples?"
Sofia questioned. "Check," Hugo confirmed, pointing at the handmade basket he was carrying on his back. Sofia then asked where they should make the shelter, and Hugo answered, "Somewhere that's still in the woods, yet closer to the shore. It should also be a little more open." The two searched until they found almost exactly what they were looking for. A nearly circular area surrounded by tall trees and relatively close to shore.
"This is perfect,"
Sofia stated.
"Okay, you can start planning out the hut. I'll go get vines to use to tie everything together,"
she finished. "You got it, Sofia," Hugo agreed, kissing the top of her forehead. Before the two could separate, they heard heavy breathing entering the area. The two gasped and turned to see Desmond catching his breath.
"Oh, hi Desmond,"
Sofia awkwardly greeted. "Huh?" Desmond responded, not even noticing Hugo and Sofia were standing there. Hugo questioned if he ran off again, and Desmond uncomfortably hesitated. "You need help with Amber, little buddy?" Hugo chuckled. Desmond automatically turned to Sofia and cried, "You told him I like Amber?" Before Sofia could answer, Hugo stated, "She didn't have to tell me, dude. It's obvious." Desmond began to sigh, and Sofia came and placed her hand on his shoulder. She explained how he just needed more confidence. But, Desmond began.
But what?
Sofia asked. But I'm just the shy, nerdy prince. She's the perfect popular princess. There's no way she'd see anything in me, Desmond explained. He went on adding how liking her was pointless since he knew he'd never get anywhere. Sofia sighed and turned back to Hugo going,
Hugo, you were in this situation once too, remember?
Desmond's face filled with shock. Hugo went through this? He thought Hugo was one of the most confident people ever, so how would he understand? Hugo then nodded and approached Desmond as well, going, It's true. I felt like I didn't deserve Sofia. Just like how you think Amber's perfect, I think the same thing about Sofia. There's no flaw that comes to my mind when I think of her. She was the nicest and most thoughtful person at Royal Prep, and I was the bully. I used to be so arrogant and selfish. So, why in the would such a perfect person be with, well, me? Desmond simply paused and thought. He didn't believe what he was hearing. From what he recalled, everyone at Royal Prep thought Hugo was the most popular and coolest prince. Wouldn't that make every girl want to be with him? Suddenly, Hugo chuckled and added, And you know what I used to do around Sofia? Desmond shook his head in response, and Hugo answered, I dashed out of the room before she saw me. Sofia began to giggle, explaining how it was all true. She then went,
I even thought he didn't care about me anymore. It felt like he was avoiding me. But he was actually avoiding his feelings, not me. Hugo was just very timid.
Desmond turned to look at Hugo for confirmation, and Hugo gave a simple nod. Desmond questioned if that meant Amber thought he was avoiding her, because that definitely wasn't the case.
I don't know, but you probably don't want to keep her waiting. Show her that you're there for her,
Sofia advised.
Right, Desmond replied. He thanked the two of them and headed back to shore. Sofia and Hugo proudly stood, watching the young prince run off. Great job, Sofia.
Me? You were the huge help, Hugo,
Sofia countered. Hugo chuckled, then questioned, We're probably going to have to be this kid's love mentors from now on, huh? Sofia giggled in response, going,
Sure seems like it. Let's just hope one day he finally gets the courage to make a move.
Hugo then gave a slight laugh, admitting that he doesn't understand what Desmond sees in Amber.
Oh, Hugo, be nice. It's cute. If Desmond likes Amber, then that's where his heart should belong.
But she's Amber.
Yes, and you're Hugo, I'm Sofia, he's Desmond, and James is James,
Sofia teased. Hugo began to smile and roll his eyes, making Sofia once again giggle.
Come on, let's go ahead and start working on the shelter,
she finished. Back by the yacht, Roland was adjusting the planks. Just a few more, Miranda, then it should be good to go, he exclaimed. Miranda then curiously observed the yacht, then pointed out how they still needed to fix the steering wheel. Oh right, I forgot it had been detached, as well as one of its handles breaking off. Actually, the wheel coming off most likely has a correlation to why the ship crashed in the first place, a voice said from behind. Roland looked over his shoulder, seeing Desmond. The king questioned what would have caused the wheel to detach, making the prince answer, I can't give you the exact reasoning. Several instances could result to that. You can have several theories, but the official solution to the problem is unknown without enough evidence. Nerd, James mumbled, Amber giving him a glare afterwards. Suddenly, they heard giggling and laughing entering the area. They turned around to see Sofia and Hugo coming out of the woods.
I have a surprise for everyone,
Sofia began.
We just finished making a shelter for all of us,
she finished. That's great, Sofia. We just finished repairing the ship, Roland replied. He then picked up the steering wheel, adding, well, almost. Hugo began to slouch and complained how that meant they worked on the shelter for nothing. His princess giggled back and assured that it wasn't for nothing, and explained how they got a fun experience from it. Yeah, working with you on it has been the best part of my day, Hugo admitted. Sofia gave a blushing smile, and they both leaned in for a hug. As Roland reattached the wheel, he questioned how to fix the broken handle, and how it broke in the first place. I know how, the captain said, approaching the king. Someone was steering my ship last night, he said.
But who, Captain Gustavo?
Sofia asked. I'll give you one guess, Amber cut in as she turned to face her twin. Me? You think I did it? James exclaimed. Amber then rolled her eyes, stating how doing something he wanted to do without permission sounds exactly like something James would do. James grew very sheepish as he responded, well, I... Everyone just paused and stared at the prince, hesitating. James, did you steer the ship last night after Captain Gustavo specifically told you not to? Roland scolded. James started to sigh, replying, I did, and I'm sorry.
James,
Sofia cried.
why?
Well, James began as he started to recall events from the previous night. Last night. Whoa! Can I try? James begged. Roland took a look at the sunset, admitting how he didn't think that'd be a good idea and how they should be preparing for bed. The captain then added that only experienced sailors should steer at night. Aww, James disappointingly reacted, quite annoyed. The prince headed below deck in his and the other two princes' cabin. James plummeted straight onto his bed with a groan. Whoa, everything okay, James? Hugo asked. No, they won't let me try to steer the ship, he explained. I should be allowed to try too, he added. Well, it's getting dark. Only experienced sailors should steer at night, Desmond told his friend. James automatically rolled his eyes as Desmond told him exactly what he was told before. I am experienced, James replied. Dude, spinning the wheel in your pirate treehouse doesn't make you experienced, Hugo chuckled. Desmond nodded in agreement, then turned to James, stating how they might let him steer in the morning when it's light out. And the sooner we get to bed, the sooner that will happen, Hugo added. James watched as the two princes prepared for bed and fell asleep. As soon as he could tell they were out, a smirk formed on his face, and he whispered to himself, well, who's gonna stop me from steering now? When he reached the deck, he looked to make sure no one was around, then headed for the wheel. This is gonna be awesome! He grabbed the two handles and intensely spun the wheel. This is even better than my treehouse! He looked up from the wheel and in front of him, noticing the ship heading straight for an island. Wait, no, not that way! He cried as he forcefully gripped one of the handles, trying to pull back. The handle ended up breaking off of the wheel, making James mumble, whoops. His eyes wandered back and forth between the wheel and the approaching island. James once again intensely spun the wheel, hoping for it to quickly turn the ship. However, it was spun too hard and fast that it ended up making the wheel come straight off. That's not good. Before he knew it, the yacht crashed straight into the island, waking everyone else up. Current time. I didn't think the ship would crash, James finished. Roland told his son how he was very disappointed in him and that he was told not to do it for a reason. I know, I realize that now. Why didn't you tell us what happened before? Miranda questioned. I didn't want to get in trouble. I was told several times not to do it, and I did it anyway, he answered. Roland placed a hand on James's shoulder and went, well, the ship is all fixed now, but hopefully you've learned your lesson. Yeah, not to steer the ship at night, James replied. Miranda approached her son as well, going, yes, that, but also that if several people tell you several times not to do something, there's a reason for it. Also, you shouldn't do anything dangerous without experience or without someone there for guidance. James gave a small nod, and Miranda said, now, who's ready to get back on the ship and continue our vacation? Me! Amber cried, then paused and added, but just keep James away from the wheel. Amber, Desmond chuckled. What? I don't want to crash again, she said, making Desmond laugh again as she joined in the laughter.